Okay, we're in business. Good. All right, so normally I have a printed agenda, so forgive me if I stumble around a little bit, but we're going to get through this. So to open up, yep, parking passes. Everyone need a parking pass?
Just
Raise your hand up if you need one.
Yes.
We'll go through a little bit of club business. I'm going to start with just a couple of announcements. If anyone has not seen Cheryl's email about the Lions of Michigan virtual forum, that is on Saturday the 27th. There is an email out there, so check your inboxes for that. Forum begins at 9 o'clock in the morning on Saturday the 27th, and it is free to attend. It's going to be through Zoom this year. So if you're interested, check that out. Also, moving into committee stuff, the Drive for Vision. Looks like the date has been announced Monday, June 21st. Does anyone want to say a couple words about the Drive for Vision to the group?
We'll save the dates on everybody's thing. We will have more info and brochures out shortly. Same as usual, third Monday in June. And if you've been to it in years past, it's same setup, 11:30 a.m. registration, 1 o'clock shotgun at Quail Ridge. More info to follow.
Okay, so for the camera, Quail Ridge, third Monday in June, more info coming. There we go. All right. Other committee announcements for the good of the club at this time? The only one I'm aware of, Blind Dinner Day, is still progressing. Ann, you want to say a little bit about, have we settled on the location?
Yeah.
You want?
I know it's out in Lowell.
Yeah.
And it's a farm. You know, it'll be a fun thing to come to. We're expecting everybody to come with their straw hats and their boots on. And,
yeah.
But
So
it's August 21st, Thursday evening, from 6 to 9.
I was hoping you knew because I'm blanking on it too. I'm sorry.
But anyways,
So
we'll have more of an update. We've been meeting pretty regularly.
Yeah, meeting monthly. So coming up in August, it is going to be a little different format as Ann mentioned. So out on a farm instead of in a facility, we're going to do some. It's going to be fun. Yeah, yeehaw, exactly. So that's coming up. And obviously we're still interested. If anyone would like to participate in the committee, please just reach out to Ann, to me, to Linda, anyone who's on the committee. We can get you set up. Okay. Any other announcements for the good of the club? Seeing nothing, I will say let's move on to guests. I think we have at least one guest here today. John?
All right. Let me introduce you, Bruce Morgan. Bruce is joining us today. He's retired from Paris. And he's been, you want to tell a little bit about yourself, what you've been up to the last couple of years?
Well, then I was taught Paris in the optometry program, so I'm an optometrist, and then I retired, where I took a buyout in August and moved to Grand Rapids. And so I'm working a little bit with Art Optical, one of the largest contact lens manufacturers in the world, actually, here in Grand Rapids, and so doing some work with them. But have some time on my hands and looking forward to giving back a little bit. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you for doing it.
Good to have you here. You're going to see me playing host and cameraman a little bit, so I'm going to do dual roles today. Okay, so let's move on to our tail twister. Jamie, if you'd like to do your thing.
Sure. Well, I got a text from Cheryl. So I've got to relay that, one, she hasn't been getting all of these cards filled out. So make sure that you fill out your card, then stack them all together, and then give them to me. Yeah, all ready. First, I'm going to probably turn around and give the whole pack back.
Just the rules.
As you recall, normally on certain holidays, we try to dress a little bit. We're 2 days after Valentine's Day, but I'll wish you all happy Valentine's Day. And if you're wearing red, that's good. If you're not, $1 or $2 would be nice. I know being 2 days afterward. Wait a second. John, you're the one that told me and reminded me about this. You know,
I got as close as I could. And no pin. So.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I feel good for the one stuff. That's good. Got hot one here. I don't know where you got this.
You look at sports outfit.
Any others?
His horse has a red sash.
You, on the other hand, are wearing red.
You look at that sign.
Dang it. He's a little guy. He's easy to miss.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Up here, Jamie.
More up here.
Boy.
I'm around in front with the camera, man. If you want to show us some around.
The red banner around there, yeah, doesn't work.
Here. I won't up to no pin today.
No pin,
It
look
missed
at
me.
this. Honest people today, right? No red, no pin. Yeah, you're gonna have to. The pin is, put it in your ear. Okay. Do we have any happy bucks for, cards and happy bucks? Anybody go anywhere? Anything to? Nobody's happy? Okay.
Well, here, Jamie, here, because I'll be gone for the month of March.
Okay, so this is for the first week. Okay, good.
Amy, I'm happy.
He's got a short memory.
The cards, okay. Yeah. Anything in particular you're happy for?
Yeah, I'm just happy I got the vaccinations. That's a good thing to be happy about, right?
That's right.
Yes.
Do I have all the cards? Because I could be in trouble.
We good? Okay, we can do the raffle.
I'm gonna go put $5 in
Get that.
there, and then I'll.
Any other last minute raffle entries? I know, I thought it'd be us getting the only winnings. That'd be, man, our odds are decreasing.
You ready in a second there?
Yep. John, you're the star of the show on this webcam right now.
I noticed that.
Okay. Anybody know white's in here?
Yes.
It should probably be in there.
Oh, it is,
I would think that'd be good.
right here.
That should be the winning ticket, the one that fell out. Make it the first one.
There's two that have been picked.
Live video feeds?
Yeah, well, recording, yeah.
Yeah, it's sick for it.
Oh, sure. John, were you gonna have any of the big ones?
The first one worth $5. Go. Last four digits are 8953. Mine.
Come up.
Okay. Oh, one more.
One more. Let's draw you
Not
for
mine.
break.
Yeah.
There's only $300 in there, Dave.
Okay,
150 to win.
8892.
Oh, that's up here.
Okay.
There we go.
All right.
Ooh, $150 if you get it.
Ooh.
Like 2,000.
Turn this around. Yeah, bring it up here. We'll get it on the camera.
Okay.
There we go. Nope,
Yeah.
a loser.
Yeah.
Okay. How wide is this? Yes.
And without my agenda crutch, I don't think I have forgotten anything. I think I'm good. So let's move on to our guest speaker. If you, Mark, you're here. Slide on over, you can introduce.
So it's good to see everybody back in person. My apologies as we've been kind of dancing between eating live, Zooming, back and forth, the holidays. So hopefully this is going to be a continual thing now, having 2 speakers a month. 2, okay. So that hopefully we'll be able to get that set up and be continuous. Gail Janad brought today's speaker to my attention. I've had a chance to meet this young lady in New Mexico 2 years ago. She's a globetrotter. She's been to Africa. She's been to Spain. She's been to Mexico and a lot of other things involved. And she's got stories and pictures and video. And without further ado, Ann Zoellner. Hi, Ann.
So I don't need a microphone. I also have a principal's voice, so you don't have to worry about that. I'm gonna move out of the way. So I'm glad to be here. Most of my friends don't want to listen to me. But I want to start out because the tribute to my dad. My dad was a Lion, so he knew Ann Zoellner from many years ago. My dad, after high school, was in bed for 2 years with tuberculosis. And so he read about the world. That's what he liked to do. So all he did was dream of going to Africa and other places. And so he brought that to us. And our story is I come from a big family. My brother Tony and I share 5 other sisters. And when my dad would get home at night, my mom would say, "Take them away." And she didn't care where we went, but just take them. And so my dad took us to Travelogues. If you came from Grand Rapids, we went to Travelogues at South High School, at Godwin, downtown at the Civic Auditorium. So at least once or twice a month, we went to Travelogues, which is where people shared their stories. And so my story started when my dad and mom took their first trip to Europe. I was a freshman in college. And my dad came home and said, "I know what you need to do. You need to get a backpack and you need to find some friends and you need to go to Europe and backpack." So I did. In September of 1973, I backpacked through Europe, took a term off of school, had $1,000 in my pocket because there was no credit cards or no debit cards. I had a 10-week Eurail pass and we did a little hitchhiking. And I had 5 mail stops with American Express, and I had a ticket home. And I literally came home with not 1 penny in my pocket. And we had no agenda, and we just traveled, and that started my love affair with travel. So I have been around the globe. I've been to 5 out of 55 countries in Africa. I've been to these countries in Asia. I'm supposed to go to Israel and Jordan in October. I don't know if that's going to happen. It didn't happen last year. I've been to all of these countries in Europe, so I've spent a lot of time in Europe. In North America, I spent time in a number of countries. And in South America, I've been to 3 countries. So I still have a lot of places left to go because I've not been anywhere in the Australia area or Oceania. So that makes me sad. However, I love the fact that traveling leaves you speechless and then you turn into a storyteller. So I have a story to tell. So I retired in 2014, and I've had what I consider to be 3 places that I've gone that have made an impact on my life. First of all, if you ever come home and tell someone you're going on a pilgrimage, they might wonder what that means. Well, in fact, I went on the pilgrimage of St. James. So what is the Camino de Santiago? I don't know, has anybody heard of it that's out there? So some of you have heard of it. So the Camino de Santiago is a 9th century set of walkways that lead you to the tomb of St. James the Greater, which is on the south or the northwest corner of Spain. And it's a way that you follow, and it is a religious Catholic pilgrimage, but nowadays it's traveled by many people. And you do it for a number of reasons, either spiritual, physical, or religious. It's a trail or a hike, and you have to do it by foot, by bicycle, or by horseback. And if you walk it, you have to walk at least 100 kilometers, which is about 63 miles. If you take a horse or a bicycle, you have to do the last 200 kilometers. In the early medieval times when this way was started, about 400,000 pilgrims walked it every year. It became very unpopular. I just did a quick little screening of times. By the 1980s, which is when Franco was in power in Spain, the Camino started to become rejuvenated. And I walked it in 2014 along with 237,000 of my best friends. So I don't know if any of you have ever watched the movie The Way, but it is the inspiration for our walking it. It's great. You can get it on Prime for $3, I think, but it will really give a story to the Camino. But this is a picture of Spain. I started in the northwest or northeast corner of Spain, came over the Pyrenees Mountains, walked 500 miles across the top of Spain, and ended in Santiago. I did what they call the French way, but it's where the Camino first hits Spain from France. But you can walk from anywhere south of France, but you can walk anywhere from any point in Europe. So if you go to Notre Dame in Paris, there is a gate of St. James. If you go to St. Patrick's in Ireland, there's a gate of St. James, and that's where people start walking. So what do you do? What do you bring? So you have to have a guide. Here's your guide. You have to be able to follow yellow arrows. You have to be able to carry water. You carry your backpack, because what you bring, you bring on your back. So that means if you bring it, you have to carry it. We use walking sticks. We had headlamps because many times we started early in the morning because it was too hot to walk during the day. You have to have your credentials, and you have to have broken-in shoes, or you will have blisters. So a typical day on the Camino is you get up between 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock in the morning, and you walk a couple of kilometers, and then we would stop, have a little breakfast, then you would walk 5 to 10 kilometers, and then you would stop and have a little snack, and then you would walk 3 to 10 more kilometers, and then you get to your night's destination. When you get to your destination, typically you stay in what they call an albergue or a hostel. And at one time, my very first hostel had 110 pilgrims sleeping in the same room. So you become quite acquainted with the fact that everyone snores. And I will report you that one of the gals that was with me snored the loudest. I never say it when she's in the room, but boy, could she snore. You get to your albergue, you take your backpack, you throw it on the bed that you want to stay in that night, and then you take a shower, you get cleaned up from walking that day, you go out and have dinner, and then you come back, and at 10 o'clock you get in bed because at 5 o'clock in the morning, the alarm will go off again. So when we walked the Camino in 2014, we did walk the Camino Francais, which is 500 miles. We had 8 days of walking where the weather was over 90 degrees, And trust me, when you're carrying 20 pounds on your back, for me, that was a lot to carry. You could hardly walk after 1 o'clock in the afternoon because the sun was so, and the heat was so intense. We walked between 10 and 14 miles a day. It just depended on, you know, the altitude that we were going over, the weather, if it was pouring rain. We just made a plan every single day, and we did have 8 days of rain. And Jean was with me for the last 100 kilometers, and it rained most of the time she was there. But in that part of Spain, it's a very rainy part as well. One of the gals had high school Spanish, and she was able to negotiate our reservations when we needed them. We each had a pack of between 18 and 25 pounds. One thing is that when I started, my pack weighed 25 pounds because if you needed something, I had it. Don't worry, I got it, right? Well, I pretty soon found out that you could get along without it if you didn't have it. Things that I brought were like a really cute yoga outfit to wear on the plane. That got sent forward to our last hotel. Tripods and warm sweaters and just anything we didn't need, we sent in the mail ahead of us. The good thing is we never had one night where we didn't have hot water or a bed to sleep in. There were times when we got into our albergue and people came later and they literally were given a piece of cardboard just to sleep on the floor in the albergue. I never had that. I only had one night in the 49 nights I was out that didn't have Wi-Fi. We never got lost. And again, there's no maps. This is just you walk and follow yellow arrows on the wall. We shared a room with 110 pilgrims. We learned that everyone snored. We could always find food and water. So when you hear about people walking like the Appalachian Trail, they have to bring their stoves, they have to bring food to cook. We were walking in Spain, and so every 4 or 5 kilometers, there was a restaurant or a place to get food. And I would love to walk it again. So this is just a sample of, as we were walking, you would find yellow shells and arrows everywhere, and that's how you found your way. There was not such a thing as a map. If you know France and Spain, we started in Roncesvalles, France. We went through Pamplona. We went into villages that had medieval stories about the Camino, cathedrals that kept chickens in them because of a miracle with chickens that they had. And so if you're ever interested, I do a 3-hour class at Aquinas, but this is just kind of a quick overview for you. There's a place called the Cruz de Ferro, and everyone brings a stone from home. And you bring a stone from home because in that stone, you put your worries, your troubles, you put anything you feel like you need to leave behind. And when you hit the Cruz de Ferro, which is the highest point in Spain, there's a large pole, you can see it with a cross on top, and everyone leaves their rock from home, and that means you're leaving your worries behind. So those were our stones, and those were us when we hit that spot. We went through the towns of Burgos, we went through Lyon. On the corner here, they were famous for their octopus, so we had to stop and have a dinner of octopus. You can see this is where Jean met up with us, and in the top corner was the picture of our feet. And I always put a picture with my foot in it because it shows I walked this land, I've been there. But this was the day that we had walked, I think it was about 28 kilometers, so close to 21 kilometers on a hot day. And I'm telling you, our feet were sore, but we were proud that we walked that land. When you get to Santiago, there's this beautiful cathedral there. The things that you do, again, I walked to this land, you get a paper or a Compostela saying you've walked it. We picked up our mail in the top. Every time we found something, we just mail it to the hotel. And when we got there, we had a whole bunch of boxes and stuff with our stuff in it. And there we are in the center of Santiago. When you get to the cathedral, there's things that you do. The first thing you do is you walk and you stand on the very top of this cathedral. Probably the most awesome thing we've ever done. There's a statue of St. James, and you hug St. James from the back. He's on an altar. Here is the tomb of St. James, and this is the pillar of St. James. And when you come in, you grasp it to show that you're there. And there's been so many millions of pilgrims that have come through that the relief that's carved into it is all gone. So it's just a great tradition. I don't think this is going to show. This is when you go to Mass, one of the things they do is they have an incense burner and it swings on top of you. It's a very famous tradition. And it stems from the fact that from medieval times, if you walked the Camino, the albergues and the hostels weren't quite as available. So you had a kind of a strange odor about you. And if you were bringing donkeys and cows with you along the way, they came into the cathedral with you. So this took away all of that smell. So I think this had a really big effect on me. It talked a lot about, you think about walking 500 miles, you have a lot to talk about with yourself when you're walking. Everyone shares when you're on the Camino. If you needed anything, you said it and 10 people would be there with it. You begin to know everyone that's walking with you at your pace. It's amazing. You always think you can do more than you think you can, because there would be days and you'd be like, okay, where's the town? And you'd point and it'd be up on top of a big hill and you're like, okay, I can do this. And off you went. And there is great satisfaction in knowing that you actually completed the walk of 500 miles. So that's a really short Camino. The other thing I did right before COVID is I went on an East African adventure, and I went to Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania. But a big bucket list for me was to walk with the gorillas. And so I went to Uganda to walk with the gorillas. And one of the things you had to do when just some kind of paperwork things is you had to have a valid passport. You had to have a visa, which took us about 2 days online to figure out how to do visas in these African countries. We had to have a gorilla permit, which meant a year and a half out, we had to secure a permit in order to come, because they keep track of who's going in and out of the gorilla areas. And immunizations played a big part because you had to have so many shots. In fact, here's my list of shots I had to have, most of which I had because I had worked in the school system, the Hep A's and B's, etc. Yellow fever was a must. You could not get into the country unless you had a stamp from your health department saying that you had yellow fever. And now on the very bottom, I put coronavirus because I'm sure that for us to go in now, you're going to have the coronavirus. So this is a real quick thing. We're just going to Uganda today with me. But this is the area that I went through. We flew internationally to Entebbe. And if you remember, Entebbe is a very large airport in Uganda. In fact, it's where the standoff was with the Palestinian army and the airplanes that had left Israel and had a number of Jewish people on it. That's their main airport. We took a small jumper plane into the jungle. We had our choice of either an 1.5-hour flight or a 7-hour bus ride. Not too hard to choose, right? We landed in Bwindi, Impenetrable National Park. It's located in Uganda on the very far southwest point of it. This is a picture of us the day we got there. They wanted us to have a practice walk. And so we had to hire 2 guards that had guns. One walked in front of us and one walked behind us. 2 months prior to us going there, an American female tourist and her guide had been kidnapped by the Congo, someone from the Congo, and she was taken for, I think she was gone about 6 or 7 weeks. She came back, she was fine, but we were only 5 miles from the Congo at that time. So if we went out, we had to bring someone with us. They made us do that. In this park, only one other place in the world, and that's Rwanda, which is the other side of the mountain, live the mountain gorillas. So in Uganda, they say there are about 480 gorillas to this day, and it is a UNESCO site, so it is very, very well taken care of. Here's my good picture. One day when you least expect it, a grand adventure finds you. I am a big hiker, and this was something I never anticipated. 5 o'clock, be ready. Be ready with your hiking boots, your day pack, your lunch and your water, and a big walking stick that they give you. So mountain gorillas don't stay in one place. They move all the time. And so you're always looking for where did they go next. Mountain gorillas are not fat. They are just huge and muscular. And their main purpose in their day is to eat, because they have to eat so much food that when you're with them, that's all they're doing is eating all the time. The silver coat on the silverback mountain gorilla tells you how old he is, because the lighter he is, the older he is. And the greatest threat to the mountain gorillas are humans, and so they are very careful with their gorillas. So as compared to a day on the Camino, a day of trekking is that before we even woke up, 3 Ugandan backtrackers were up in the morning in the jungle looking for the family we were assigned to. And so then our group of 8 walkers get together with your 8 porters, and then you have 1 guide, and again you have your 2 armed guards, and then you have the porters that you hire to bring with you. They give you your walking stick. I'm used to walking with really super lightweight walking sticks when I trek here. Those would have snapped like toothpicks if we had used those there. You have to use these really strong ones. And then your extra hand is for your porter. So here's our porter, and I thought, I don't know if I need a porter. Well, I'll tell you right now, I'd still be in Uganda if I didn't have my porter. And it's this young woman, she probably weighed 90 pounds soaking wet, and she could pull me up that mountain like you couldn't believe. But when people asked me what it was like, I said it was steep, slippery, difficult, laughable, because every time I fell, I laughed, and they told me they could always tell where I was because I was laughing all the time. It was uphill and downhill. It was wearisome. It was a long haul. It was challenging. It was effortful. It was Herculean. It was arduous, and it was life fulfilling. It's probably the hardest thing I ever did in my whole life in terms of physical output. And yet, there's another slide coming up, and they'll show you that it was difficult. So when you're walking in, so our guides are talking to the other guides that have been tracking that gorilla in the morning, right? They know, so we know where they are. And pretty soon we can hear the other trekkers, and they're making these sounds. You're coming close, you're coming close. So then they give you the rules of being with the gorillas. You have to stay together, and you have to crouch way down. And you never stare directly into their eyes. If they're looking at you, you just take a subservient stance and look down. If the male gorilla charges, you're supposed to just stand there. You're not supposed to do anything. Crouch down, and they will stop before they get to you. So after just walking this walk, and you're like, what? What do you mean they're going to charge me? But anyway. And then they say never touch a baby, because the babies find you very interesting and they come right up to you. And so you have to make sure you don't touch them, because that would make the silverback very angry. The minute you get where the gorillas are, you have 1 hour, and that's it. They will tell you pretty soon, you have 5 minutes left, you have 4 minutes left, and then you have to get up and go. Then when you're done, you get up, and the trackers keep following the gorillas for the next day so they can find them again. And so then in the end, you're tipping all these people, the tour guide, your porter, all the trekkers that went out early in the morning, and then you're also paying the armed guards that are with you. This is like one of the only shots where I could actually turn around and take pictures of what other people were doing, because otherwise you were hanging onto your porter's hands as they pulled you up the mountain and down. And my porter at one time was pulling me up with one hand, and she was pushing the woman in front of me up on her behind. And I can't begin to tell you that when you go, they tell you to go down the hill, that means you're using your heel to make a dent so you're not going to totally slip down the mountain. And when you're going up, you kick with your toe to make your next step. And the whole time the vines are wrapping around your leg, which is why I kept falling and laughing. But then you meet the gorillas. You're not going to be able to hear him, but you can see him. I think he's just chomping away. And that's all he does. all day long. And I had this vision in my head of what it was going to be like, and I thought, oh, there's going to be this nice plateau, and they're all going to be out there, and I can see them together. They're not. They're in the jungle with you, and as they move, your porter pulls you so that you're following them as well. Again, here's one of the other big gorillas. And then alongside them, there's always the babies, and they're always having a good old time. Again, we were just standing there, and this silverback starts walking by you, and you can hardly believe he's coming that close to you. But he's just looking for another place to eat. He just sits back down and watches you. You can see here, this woman in front of me had that gorilla come really close to her. One of the things about gorillas that make them similar to us in terms of our chromosomes is their use of tools. So this one little gorilla had taken a stick, and he had rubbed it against the tree, and then he was licking it because all the ants were scurrying around it. So that's how he was eating. And again, they throw each other, just like being with kids, they throw each other down the mountain. So literally, it's almost a surreal thing to tell because it's such a big thing to walk there, and you're there, and they eat, and then you have to go. But it's an amazing thing. On the way back, you stop and have your lunch. There were lots we sat down, and pretty soon we had red ants all over us, so they were pulling our shirts off, picking off the red ants. So it was kind of a fun little trip. A week before I left, I had walked a Make-A-Wish Challenge, which is a 10-hour, 21-mile trek along the North Country Trail. And when I did that, it's hard to see, but I had walked 21.2 miles in 10 hours, and I climbed 109 floors. At least that's what my watch tells me. A week later, I'm trekking the gorillas. The whole thing took us 5 hours. We only had walked 4.6 miles. Now I can do Reed's Lake, which is about 4.6. I can do that in an hour, easy. So it goes to show you. But even in 4.6 miles, we climbed 91 flights of stairs. So that means we were either going up or going down, going up and going down. So it was an amazing trip. Here's our trekking team when we got back down. We never thought we needed our porters, and like I said, I don't think we would have ever been able to do that. So really an amazing trip. But my third trip I feature is Mexico. And this is where I went with the Lions Club, and I cannot begin to tell people what an amazing thing that is. Here was our team, or parts of our team that were working that day. It's one of the best things I've done. You travel a lot, and you do it mostly for yourself, and then you get to go and you actually do it for someone else. So here was our team. Our team travel lets us pass it on. And I say that seek and you find it, and what is unsought will go undetected. So I think that I seek because I always want to learn something more. So that was a really fast.
Question on the Camino. You say you need a guide?
No,
You
no,
don't need a guide.
no guide.
Okay.
And we don't like to say it, but we didn't know what we were doing when we got there. I had a plane ticket, and we knew we had to have our guidebook. And then they said, follow the arrows. So we went a day early because we wanted to find the first arrows, because we thought for sure we would get lost. There were times, especially in the dark, when you needed to have a lot of people, because you never know. The arrows were on the ground, they were on trees, they were picked out of sunflowers, they were on barrels, they were on pedestals, they were just all over. But there's most of the time you're not in a city, and so you're walking, and then you get to a fork in the road, and everybody stops, and it's like, where do we go? And so we have to make sure. But you do not need a guide.
How long do you need to do it at a comfortable pace?
Well, it depends on why you're doing it. And I was retired, so I had time. So we took extra days. So every time we got into a big city, we got a nice hotel. I hate to say that, but we did. Did our laundry, had a nice time, and have, bathroom, things like that. Most people, if they're just walking for the physicalness of it, do it in 33 days. And that's kind of set out because it's a Catholic pilgrimage and Christ lived for 33 years. So it's just equated. We learned in our first day, we could not walk as fast as people. We could walk faster than others, and that we could never really do it in 33 days. We just knew our physical beings couldn't do it. Jamie?
Is there a specific time of year that this is done? Is there a starting time and an end time?
It isn't. It's done all the time. It's just that Spain has weather like this. It's snowing in Spain right now. I get the weather report from there a lot. It snows in the mountains, and so it's not very comfortable, and not all of the albergues and hostels are open because there's not as many people walking. I would say the best times of the year would probably be May and June, and then we were there in September and October, and so they're a little cooler. But again, we thought we were home free at the end of August starting, and we had 9 days of solid 90-degree heat. It was hot, so you just kind of do it yourself. Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.